Okay, we're up and running. Week 2 of the Nutcracker. Are there any questions before we start? Face, hands, what we did last week? Okay, there are no questions. And I didn't get many emails, so everybody must be doing pretty well. So we will move right along. So we're going to start on his uniform today. Back to the boots for just 1 second. If you haven't done your boots, Kathy did a great job. She took her boots and she did diagonal goblins, but she made a V out of them on either side. So instead of doing a basket weave, she came down doing a V and went in opposite directions on each side on either side of the gray. Does that make sense? Did that make sense, Lisa?
Like this?
Yes. Well, you can go up and down or you can go the other way.
I did that with the line right above his eye. I did one going this way and one going that way.
Exactly. You can do the same thing on the boots on each side of the middle gray area. It's if you don't want to just basket weave it. So yes, that was just a little suggestion that somebody else did that I was going to share. I don't think mine's I shared. Hold on, Ashley's coming in. Good morning, Ashley.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I was just saying that on the boots, if you haven't done the boots, on each side of the middle gray area that comes down, you can do those in slanted goblins and put them going in opposite directions like they're a V. You can either go up the V or you can go down with the V.
Okay.
It was just something Kathy here did, and it looks good. Just another suggestion, just if you haven't done the boots yet. Okay, so we're going to start into the uniform. The a couple stitches here, nothing too tough. The main part, we'll start with the sleeves. The sleeves are done in an alternating Scotch stitch. I know the stitch diagram is a Scotch over 4, but you're actually going to be doing a Scotch over 3. You'll just do over 1, over 2, over 3, then you come back and do over the 2 and over the 1. So the stitch diagram has 1 extra. On your painted Nutcracker, there's a lot of shading. You do not necessarily have to do all the shading. I opted out of shading. If you opt out of shading, then you just put 1 row on the outside and 2 rows on the inside of his arm, here and here. And then over 3, you will get equal amounts of 1, 2, 3, it looks like 4 rows of Scotches. And like I said, then they're alternating from side to side. It gives the silk a different look when they're alternating, the way that they lay. If you want to do the shading, then you just may have to do, I would start right down the middle with your first Scotch and then work out from either side. And then you might have to do some compensating. We will have to do some compensating. If you're not sure about how to compensate and what to do on your compensation, a cool trick is to take a Post-it. I don't have a stitch diagram. Someone will hand me one. Okay, yep, perfect. Okay, so what you would do is on the Scotch, which is here, you would then put a Post-it where you would end up. And it shows you what your stitch should look like if you're compensating. So you just Post-it. I just stick it on there on the sticky side, and then it shows me where I should be ending. Does that make sense? Okay, good.
You're brilliant.
You guys good? Mm-hmm. Just put it on there and it shows you how to compensate, what your compensation stitch should look like. And I do say things several times because some people get it one way and some people get it another. So just hang with me if you get it the first time. So his sleeves are done. And then you move down to the bottom of his jacket. which is also done in the alternating Scotch.
And when you start his jacket or, here, does it matter where you start or where did you start?
I just started in the corner and worked across.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. There was just a little bit of compensation. I thought the compensation would be less noticeable here in this itty bitty spot as opposed to, so I always try to run my longest stitch or run my stitch in the longest area where it gets seen. And then try to keep the compensating in the smallest area. Okay, so that's the bottom of the.
You started right to left at the top of the scope?
Yeah, just start at the top of his coat. Waist. Yeah, at the waist. Yeah, for the bottom. Okay. Yeah, yeah. And then work down from there. Okay. Then his upper jacket is worked in a diagonal Scotch. So you're just going to take that Scotch and you're just going to work it down sideways. Again, I started about here and I just worked my way down. It sets up your pattern. And then once you have your pattern, you work either side of it from there. But if you're working something like that, always start where you can get where you need the pattern, always start where you can get the longest line of your needle point because it sets it up to make it easier to do the other sides.
So you did it by the last button?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Oops, he falls on the floor.
Yes. So yeah, so on his jacket, yeah, so I'm going to start it here around this bottom button and then work my way down just to set up that pattern. And then work it up from there with the compensating.
And did you do, now that I can't see the finished one, did you do any of that gray shading or no?
I did the shading just one row on either side. Again, You're welcome to do whichever shading you like.
Okay.
And I just did the one row.
Okay.
Of the shading.
Picture.
Okay. So that's the upper jacket. The pants, back to the buttons. When you work the gold, underneath the button is an eyelet stitch. And the eyelet stitch, you start out from the outside. I didn't know I was going to be teaching this, so I didn't take pictures as I went. So you're going to start at the outside of the button, and you're just going to drop your hole right in the middle of that button each time. So you're going to come up on the edge, and you're just going to drop it right in the middle. And it doesn't matter if it's even, because what you're going to do is the buttons I got happen to have a cool little divvy on the back. And my button has to hold when you sew the button on, it has the, shank. Thank you, Shelley. It has the shank on the back of it, and that fits inside of that eyelet. And then it also came with a little pin that had it on the card that I got at Hobby Lobby. And I just attached it on the back.
Did you sew it too?
Nope. I just attached it with the pin.
Okay.
Yep. And then it just secures on the back once you push it through the eyelet, and it just secures right there to the button. You can sew it or pin it either way. You don't have to do a button. You could always just do a road stitch or the eyelet stitch, and you could just leave it without the button. The buttons are, of course, optional.
But we need to do the eyelet underneath it.
Yeah. Do the eyelet just in case. If you ever lose a button, then at least you've got the eyelet underneath. I'd rather have it stitched than not. So yes. Okay. Then the pants. They are worked in a diagonal mosaic. Again, just start at the top corner and then work your way down. It sets up the pattern, and you just kind of keep working down from there. So that's the pants. And then the applets are worked in just a cottonelle stitch. And you can use fireworks, Krynic, whatever color combo on that one that you have in your stash.
Oh, stash. I
mean, not your stash, in your bag.
Okay.
In your bag. So yes. So you might like the fireworks over the Krynic in his epaulets. You can stitch underneath the red, or you can leave it blank, but we will be sewing on those lovely Swarovski jewels at the end. I glue them on. See, I overslept. I haven't had my coffee. Yeah, so then we'll glue the crystals on. The finisher does an awesome job of protecting everything. You know, these are wrapped like they're china. They're wrapped in bubble wrap, that 2-3 layers, and padded and sent back.
Now, will the finisher put the buttons on, or do we have to put the buttons on?
We put the buttons on here on the top of his coat. We send it there, and then the brooch here, if you decide to do a brooch here, just send it and she will attach it. So yes. Okay. Now, last area for today is the sash. There are 2 options with the sash. You can either have a piece of ribbon, the finisher will put a piece of ribbon on top of your sash, which looks pretty cool. It's like a real sash coming down, or you can just stitch it. But you still have to stitch it underneath because she can't get it right up in places, and you do see some of the stitching right up underneath. So you do have to do the stitching underneath, but then you also have the option of having her put a ribbon on.
Does the finisher
Yeah.
supply the ribbon?
The finisher supplies the ribbon, yes. And then the back piece, the piece that would be coming around from the back of his waist down, you of course stitch, and it does not get covered because it's secondary. It's coming around from the back, and you really want the top one to sit on top. And I tried several different ways to do this. I did a finished piece where I folded it under and attached it, and it sat up too high, and I tried just stitching it. It was sat too flat. And so anyway, the finisher finally just called Kristen and said, I have an idea. I was like, go for it.
The back of the sash, where it's going to be mostly covered, can we stitch that in something other than continental just to get a bigger
Yeah,
space to
yeah,
cover it?
yeah, you can stitch it.
Something down
Yeah,
here at the bottom
yeah,
of the continental.
yeah. I think a Milanese stitch would look good there. If you just wanted to do a stitch underneath, the Milanese would be pretty on there. Yeah. So yes, so that is it for this week. Next week, we will start the sword, the beard, and I'll do samples of Lazy Daisy, Twisted Lazy Daisies, and go over the crown. Yes. Yep. And then the last week, we'll just go over finishing it and seeing if there are any other questions. Ashley, got anything? Lisa, you good?
I'm
I'm
good.
good.
Okay, very good. I'm going to start recording. You guys have a great day. If you have any questions, just call me.
Thank you.